Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us today for this Trimble webinar. And our topic today is Trust Your Project Data, Trimble's integrated approach to accounting and project management. My name is Wesley Balance. I am a ProjectSight Solution Engineer Manager. My team focuses on not only ProjectSight, but some of the other aspects of the Trimble Construction One platform that touch project managers' daily lives. Anything that a project manager might interact with within the Trimble Construction One platform, my team handles a lot of those demonstrations. I am joined today by two experts in their fields, Leah and Stephanie, and I'll give them a chance to say hello and introduce themselves.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thanks for taking your time out of your busy days to spend the next hour or so with us. My name is Leah Crow. I am a solutions engineer focusing on Vista and the integrations between Vista and ProjectSight. Very excited to get to work with you folks for the next hour or so.
And I'm Stephanie Lee. It's great that you all could take some time out of your day to watch this webinar today. But I am one of our Spectrum solution engineers. So I too am like Leah, but on the Spectrum side, where I am an expert in that integration between ProjectSight and Spectrum.
Thanks, Stephanie, and thanks, Leah. A couple of housekeeping items so that you can make the most out of your experience today. You can customize your view, click on a box, and then that handles how you can move things, enlarge things, reduce things. You can choose what you want to see. And then one of the most important aspects of it, how you ask a question. And we're going to do that through the question and answer option there. So you have access to that and you can type questions in as we go. We may not answer them as soon as they come in, as we'll allot some time at the end to address as many questions as we can. And Leah and Stephanie have both volunteered to monitor that chat as we go through. So like I said, we're going to try to get to as many as we can when they come through. May not get to all of them, and we'll do our best to answer as many as we possibly can during the question and answer section at the end of today's webinar presentation. There's also some resource material. I invite you to check that out as well. All of that is available there on your screen. Our agenda today, as we walk through this webinar, we're going to have a brief introduction about the Trimble accounting and project management. We'll understand more deeply the power of integration. We'll also see it in action, and that's our demo piece of our webinar today. And then, as I mentioned, we'll wrap things up with that question and answer section at the end.
Now, Trimble Construction One is our completely connected construction management suite of products. You know, a lot of you are maybe already familiar or are using the Spectrum or the Vista ERP, but we actually have a whole suite of products that include that software, as well as maybe there's some hardware, maybe you need an estimating solution, whatever those different personas might be. So this chart here kind of explains a lot of those different personas, but you know, we've got solutions for service, we've got solutions for MEP. We're going to see ProjectSight today, as well as that integration with the accounting and finance portion of the system. So it's all connected, it's all part of that management suite under Trimble Construction One.
So throughout today, you're going to hear about both ERP offerings from Trimble and their connection within ProjectSight. One of those is going to be Vista, which is a fully GAP certified ERP solution that provides a connected construction experience. So from payroll to AP to project management, all the way through to reporting, we're going to have you folks covered. Now, Vista does offer your team the ability to configure or customize your software through the power of SQL and custom fields to create a unique experience for your company.
Now, on the Viewpoint Spectrum side of things, that's another one of our ERP offerings here. And similar to Vista, you know, it's going to do all of your job costing, project management, your accounting. It is SQL based. There's a few things with Spectrum where we have multi-currency So if you do need multiple currencies, Spectrum can accommodate that. We also have a timekeeping app that's available in Spanish and English. So that is something that we also offer there for timekeeping in the application. So just a few things with Spectrum, but they're both very similar.
Thanks, Stephanie, and thank you, Leah. I want to take a moment to dive into project management a little bit deeper. So a closer look at the value of Trimble Construction One. At its core, Trimble Construction One is a connected construction solution suite that simplifies the technology stack and streamlines the way our customers work. This is one of the key tenets of Trimble Construction One, connectivity. With Trimble Construction One, the people, projects, processes are all connected, providing increased visibility, productivity, and profitability for the business. This connected construction solution suite covers almost every part of the construction lifecycle, from design and modeling to estimating, project management, fabrication, financial management, and more. No matter the phase of the construction lifecycle, Trimble Construction One is designed to support you in every step of the way. As a result, the main benefits of Trimble Construction One include, first, by connecting disconnected products, workflows, data, so that customers can create and collaborate more effectively. Second, with anywhere, anytime access to workflows and data, customers can reduce errors, waste, and costly rework. This helps them run a better business. Third, dashboards and analytical tools help to keep track of progress and uncover issues. Therefore, as a result, customers can make more informed decisions. With all of that covered, with an introduction into the Spectrum side of the house, the Vista side of the house, and how that's going to interact with our project management aspect of Trimble Construction One, I want to take a deeper look at that as it relates to the software itself. And with that, we'll jump over into ProjectSight. I've got a number of different projects here that I'm involved in. And for today's purposes, we're going to spend some time in our central perk project here. Discuss ProjectSight can be connected with Spectrum or with Vista. This particular project here, and we're going to do both in our demonstration today, but this particular project here is very easily linked back over into Vista to the corresponding project here. Now, once we do that, if you've attended previous webinars, you've had conversations about this topic before, you then understand that when that link is established, information can then flow from Vista or Spectrum into ProjectSight, and it's going to be that pathway where information can flow from ProjectSight back over to Vista or to Spectrum. One example of the information coming over would be our budget. For example, we'll look at that in just a little bit here, but an example of information that flows from ProjectSight back over into the back office is going to center around the potential change order process. I'm going to pull up a potential change order for this particular project, and I've got two down here at the bottom, 009 and 010, that are very, very similar. And I did this on purpose, just for demonstration purposes. I'm going to start with 010. And this particular potential change order, you can see that I've got two items within this PCO. But before we get into the connection back over into Vista piece, I wanted to spend a moment and follow the breadcrumb trail of where this potential change order came from. How did it come to be here in ProjectSight? On the right-hand side, we'll see all of the header information about this PCO. I have the option to look at any linked records or items here within ProjectSight. Now, in this case, this PCO has been linked to RFI number 20. very easily, I can open up RFI number 20, see the information and the data captured there. And in other cases, I may dive deeper on that breadcrumb trail to where this particular RFI is a result of an issue that was identified on a project. Now, this particular issue on the project came to be here in my project management system because I put a markup on a design or on a drawing sheet here in ProjectSight, and instantly I have access to that particular sheet, and more importantly, that particular issue as illustrated here. It's just number issue 101. If we follow that breadcrumb trail back up, this is where it all started. With a project manager creating a markup on a drawing, creating the issue to go with that markup. From the issue, simply coming in and adding a new record, which in my case was an RFI. I created RFI number 20 from this issue. It was linked together. I then came to the RFI, created the PCO, which is ultimately how we landed on this screen. So now that we have a PCO, I want to talk a little bit about the information that we're looking at here. I'm going to zoom out just for a moment so you can get a better view of this, because how this information writes back to Vista, if you will, is going to be dependent upon the allocation here of these particular line items on this PCO. As you can see, this is currently a pending revision. I can utilize ProjectSight for a number of different assignments within this PCO. For example, if we look back to our pop out here of the header information, I can see who is assigned to PCO number 101. Additionally, I can pop out any of these particular items and see who those items are assigned to. So in my example here, I'm playing the role of a project manager and a general contractor, and we need to get pricing for a couple of items on this PCO. I've assigned this to an outside party, Teresa. Teresa can then do a couple of different things. It's really permissioned up to you. If Teresa enters pricing here, maybe attaches a quote for that, or if she also, or singularly, enters her proposed amount here. All along, we're capturing this information on this potential change order so that we can easily write that information automatically back over into our ERP system. You can see how these line items are broken out over here with that header information there, what contract that's tied to, what budget code that's tied to. And again, coming back, we're looking at the pending revisions here. Now, the main focus of this webinar today is that button right up here in the upper left-hand corner, that up and down arrow, which if I hover over it is going to say send to Vista. When I do that, in this particular case, the connection is run on a scheduled basis. So this is essentially flagging that PCO to be picked up by that next run. And since this is a pending revision, or it's listed as such in ProjectSight, what's going to happen with the click of that button is it's going to then write that information over into PM pending change orders. So if we go into PM pending change orders, I'll look at, there's a couple of examples of PCOs that have already been entered here. We can see what where they land from ProjectSight into Vista. And that's in the case of a pending revision. Now, as we continue our back and forth or in gathering information, right, with pricing, we have now wrapped this up. We've sent it to an owner. We've gotten approval. We've entered in what that approval amount may be. Then we're landing on that second PCO that I created because I've progressed this one a little further along in that process, right? We've got those proposed amounts. We've got those approved amounts. I'd already clicked the button, and we now have this allocation as an approved revision. Everything else from a PCO standpoint of the example that I'm previously showing and this example is exactly the same, right? I have all of my link documentation just like I did in that previous example. It's just in this case, I went ahead and pushed this over into Vista. The big difference here is that with that allocation of an approved revision, if we had listed that as a pending revision and it had written to Vista, when we make this change, again, this PCO was going to be flagged for an update by the next run of that integration. And in that case, it will remove the item from the pending pending change order in project management in Vista, and instead will then write that into JC change orders here in Vista. So in the case here, if we look up here, it is number 9 with that fire sprinkler system additions. And then underneath, you can see the 2 items that we had represented back over here in ProjectSight for that particular PCO. I want to bring in Leah, who is the Vista expert, to talk about some of the value there with capturing this information, having it automatically flow back into Vista. But I also alluded to something that I wanted Leah to elaborate on a little bit more, and that was the pending revision and pending PCOs or pending change orders in Vista PM, and then JC change orders in Vista, and those different allocations and how that's going to move information to certain locations in Vista, because there may be people on the call who are unfamiliar with PM pending change orders. So Leah, if you could provide some insight into that, as well as some of the advantages now with this connection between ProjectSight and Vista.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that, Wes. I think first and foremost, just giving the power of to your project managers in the palm of their hands, giving them access to our accounting system while not having to log into the ERP solution in order to capture change orders is really the most important thing I think we can do for our project teams. They don't have to log into the system. They don't have to remember to come back at a later date. They can do this from their phones, from their tablets, from their desktop browsers. And it's giving that connectivity automatically into the accounting system so that accounting can see it right away. To answer your questions more about the PM pending change orders and the JC change orders, there may be some people out there who are maybe thinking, why are we moving in between 2 different modules? So the way the integration is built is that when it is a pending change order, has not been approved, but we want to capture this in our projections, we need to move this over to PM pending change orders. So that's how the integration is set up there, really so that we can see those change orders have not been approved into our projections. And like Wes said, once it becomes approved, it does delete itself from the PM pending change orders. And that can sound really scary, you guys, right? But remember, we're tracking the full history out here in ProjectSight. We'll be able to see when it was created, if it was linked to somebody, or to a RFI or to an issue. We'll be able to see who sent it over. We'll be able to see when it was approved. Remember, we're tracking all of that history out in ProjectSight. So back to the original thing, when we have a pending change order, it goes into PM pending. Once it becomes approved, it then deletes itself out of PM pending in the system and automatically goes into JC change orders. Gone are the days of needing to actually interface within Vista itself, because the integration is going to take care of that for us. So really giving your project teams the power to get their information into the system, have it flow directly into our accounting system so our accounting teams can see it and account for that, and give those to you really on the go. So thanks for that, Wes. Appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks, Leah. Good insight there into the value that this gives not only the back office, but the project managers, the people in the field as well. Covering the Vista topic, I want to dive into a project that is connected to the Spectrum offering within Trimble. So we'll navigate over to a project that's connected over into Spectrum. And again, nothing changes based on whether you're using Vista or Spectrum from the ProjectSight side. Meaning, just as I can easily link a project over in Vista, here in the settings in ProjectSight, I can easily link that. If you're a Spectrum customer, process is exactly the same. I can link that back over into Spectrum as well. One of the things that I mentioned when we were talking about the Vista connection and information flowing from Vista into ProjectSight would be that budget. So when we think about, well, there was a contract and there was a budget code that I assigned that PCO, or I utilized in that PCO, right? All of that information is flowing from the back office, whether Spectrum or Vista, into the ProjectSight interface. So that's where this budget came from. The contracts that we were assigning on a PCO, all of that information came from the back office, either Vista or Spectrum, and were populated here in ProjectSight. So I don't have to build my contracts in the back office and then add them into my project management system so that I can then utilize them when I'm creating potential change orders or ultimately subcontract change orders, which I'll touch on briefly. I don't have to do that again. The integration takes care of that for me. So I wanted to make that point before we utilize or look at a example of a potential change order here in ProjectSight flowing into Spectrum. Similar scenario here. I've got two that I'm going to operate with here in our webinar demo. First one, and I'm going to emphasize this again, the whole process that I walked through with the breadcrumb trail, everything ProjectSight related is no different if I'm using Vista or if I'm using Spectrum. I can still do all of the same things. I can still enter all of the same information, utilize the assignments to get information from outside parties. If we're submitting out for pricing, we're getting that pricing back. We're updating the fields here on that PCO. Maybe we're wrapping that up and sending it to an owner for approval. All of that can be done in ProjectSight. I'm capturing the information, and the button that we looked at over in Vista is still there. Or excuse me, in ProjectSight on the Vista side is still there. I get the same message here. When I click that button and that scheduled integration runs, I see success that this potential change order has been linked to this project in this company over in Spectrum. Very, very similar to what we saw. I just put 2 in here so we could see what those different stages would look like if it hadn't been linked over yet, and then, of course, clicking the button and what actually would take place, right? Here's the example of that middle step of we've now flagged this for integration, and we are ready for that to be picked up so that that information can be entered over in Spectrum. Same process, similar benefits, and I will let, I'll bring Stephanie in here in just a minute. But what I wanted to cover here briefly within Spectrum is where that information can then be found here in the Spectrum interface. So here I've gone into that same project here. I'm going to dive down into the changes. We'll look at our change request log. And what we'll see for our change request log is that plumbing additions PCO. So that was that 001 that had been linked back over into Spectrum, this one here, and how that's represented here in Spectrum. If we dive down into that and open up that entry, we can see all the information that came over from ProjectSight, when that was picked up, when that was moved over into Spectrum. So Stephanie, I'll ask the same or similar question to you for our Spectrum users on the call, and probably some similar responses that as what Leah covered into the value that this provides for those utilizing Spectrum in the back office and wanting a better way to capture that change order or PCO information in the field.
Absolutely, yes. So very similar to a lot of what Leah had already mentioned here, but having that initiate in ProjectSight in the field allows the field to not miss that. Sometimes accounting gets out there and they go to bill and they don't even know there's a change order that happened. And by that point, the chance of us maybe being able to bill that on the next bill and getting that money back may not happen. So, but being able to give them the opportunity to walk that job site, pull up their app on their tablet or phone of ProjectSight, identify an issue that's there and maybe route it to a foreman or PM that can then review it and convert that into that change order, that potential change order in ProjectSight will really capture that. Even if they don't know if it's going to result in a change order, at least they've documented it. So that whole bread trail that we talked about there. Now, by being able to you say, okay, this has been approved, we're ready to send that to Spectrum, that's going to key that right into change request entry for you. You're going to get that budget revision where somebody doesn't have to key it in twice, and then you can pick and choose, hey, do we want to adjust the contract here and adjust that schedule values, or are we just going to do a budget revision only and we've already factored that into whatever our markup is? So that really captures the whole story here and really increases those efficiencies so that we're not missing anything, but we're also not keying things in twice.
Great, Stephanie. I appreciate that, and some, again, valuable insight there into how ProjectSight can enable project managers to better capture the information in the field. And we've heard both Stephanie and Leah talk about it, right? The ability to capture it on multiple devices, utilizing a browser on a tablet or a phone or on a laptop, and being able to very quickly and easily capture this information, capture associated content as well, right, with the breadcrumb trail, and then allowing the integration to do the data entry back over into the back office platform. I think real quick here, if we can wrap up the Spectrum piece, I did give the integration a chance to run here on the back end. So now, in addition to the one that we were looking at with 001, we also have a new item in here, which is 002. And that would be the potential change order that we covered in the demo that had not yet been aligned or set for integration. So if we go back over into ProjectSight, for example, right, we're looking at the 001. If we come back over to 002, now instead of that button up there, that's been replaced by that green bar saying success. This has been linked to a potential change order over in Spectrum. So that's a live look. I did one example there for you. The process in Vista is exactly the same. That's why I didn't feel like we needed to do it twice. But that gives you an example of, here we saw a potential change order that was not yet linked, was then flagged for the integration. The integration ran, it picked up that addition, right, that new PCO, and then wrote that data back over into our back office system. And in this case, it happened to be Spectrum that I used for the example. I'm going to slide back into our PowerPoint presentation here. And you'll notice it says new here, and that's breaking news, really, as this was a feature within the integration that was released last week, I believe. So breaking news here from your development team at Trimble. We talked early on about information that was being pulled into ProjectSight and how budget information is pulled Additionally to that, the budget, the contracts, additionally to that information, we have now released a job cost data pool, so that job costs are now being pulled from Vista into ProjectSight. Now, Spectrum team, hang on. This is breaking news. It was released on the Vista side first, coming to a Spectrum theater near you soon. So I'm going to navigate back over into that Vista connected project, and I'll give you an example of what that looks like in bringing over job costs from the back office ERP, in this case Vista, over into our budget screen here in ProjectSight. Now, remember, I talked about how the budget, once that project is linked from Vista into ProjectSight, that budget is going to appear here in ProjectSight. In addition to that, if I expand out just this one here, maybe we dive into this project manager line item here on this under the labor cost type for this particular budget. If we start looking at the transactions against this particular budget item. Now, if we were looking at maybe something down here in subcontracts, for example, and we were looking and we had issued some PCOs against that subcontract, those would be listed out here in the transactions. Here, we can see and click on a job cost as it relates to that budget item, and I can see all this is permissioned based as well. I can see the breakdown here for the description, my amounts, my unit of measure. You can see some of the header information over here on the right as well. And that information being represented here in the budget within ProjectSight. So we'll call Leah back in, the Vista expert. Leah, what does this, or what value does this give our project managers in the field being able to see this information in ProjectSight and not having to go to Vista to get it?
Yeah, I mean, this is the most exciting thing we've had this year, in my own personal opinion. Being able to see those actual costs in ProjectSight is huge. We can now come in, see our original budget, any changes we've made through change orders. Now we can see the cost compared to that. So it's really giving your project teams one place to come in here and look at all of the information for their projects without having to look at some of it in ProjectSight and then using analytics or Vista to pull reporting on the actual cost. So it is just giving your project managers the total flexibility to do their job that they need to do.
Now, hopefully, through our conversations with Leah and with Stephanie and some of the visuals that I provided from a demonstration standpoint, you can see the goal that Trimble is after, the goal that we have for you, our customers, which is getting out of that old school tech stack, right? Where we've got an ERP and then we've got a project management system, and then we're going out into the software world and we're trying to find a provider that is going to integrate those two different platforms together within Trimble Construction. One, it's the same company, so it's the same provider, it's the same bill, it's the same support, and you've got a back office ERP system, Vista or Spectrum, with all the capabilities that it provides. You've got a project management system in ProjectSight and all the capabilities that it provides. And you've got that one company that has built the integration between the two sections of Trimble Construction One. So hopefully what we have done today is illustrated what a connected platform looks like between project management, the back office, and really what that looks like when there's a single provider providing that connection. Now, everybody's favorite part of today's webinar, I did promise that we would leave plenty of time. We absolutely did. And with the number of attendees on today's webinar, it was a great turnout. Appreciate everybody being here. I know there are tons of questions, and I know that I've been monitoring it a little bit. I see that we've answered some along the way, and we'll do our best to answer them here now as well. All right, I'm going to dive into these and see if. All right, so the first one on my list, in the Spectrum change request entry screen, how is the current status set in ProjectSight so the correct type of change request is set when it links over to the ERP? Stephanie, I'll let you, as I'm going through these questions, I'm going to let you take a stab at that one. And if you need me to,
I was answering another question. Can you tell me it again?
I can. So in the Spectrum change request entry screen, how is current status set in ProjectSight so that the correct type of change request is set when it's linked over to the ERP?
Got you. Yeah. So when your change request comes over, there is some configuration settings that they'll go through when you set up your ProjectSight, but the status would be a cost revision, like a cost revision only status is how a prime contract changer comes over. If it's a committed contract change or a committed change order for a subcontractor, then that will come over with a proposed status. Now, all the statuses that you're already using in change request entry in Spectrum do not go away. You still have that flexibility to be able to use those to manage your visibility on your costs and your billing and all of the out-of-the-box Spectrum functionality.
One thing that I promised during our during my demo piece, or maybe it was during my introduction, that I did not cover, and I wanted to briefly cover this because it's probably another webinar. I don't know if I'm volunteering myself for that or not, but it's probably another webinar, and that is what's the next step here? If we've got these potential change orders, and I've shared my screen again here, if we've got those potential change orders, the next step might be a subcontract change order, and the ability to grab potential change order items and add them to a subcontract change order that we can build here in ProjectSight. And then, yes, just like potential change orders, both on Vista and Spectrum, you'll notice the button in the upper left-hand corner. These can also be linked back over into Vista and or Spectrum. So wanted to make sure that I hit on that because I know I teased it a little bit, but I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware. Potential change orders, subcontract change orders, as we escalate those up, those are flowing back over into the back office as well. Let me get back down to our Q&A session.
Hey, Wes, I've got one I'd like to bring up if that's okay with you.
Okay.
Yeah, so I had someone ask, is accounting allowed a review time before it actually posts? When this one question was asked, I believe this was directly related to the change orders being automatically interfaced once they are approved and sent over from ProjectSight. So you guys can set up workflows or security by users in ProjectSight so that accounting is the one who actually pushes the change order into Vista. So what I mean by that is if you want to have an in-depth review by your accounting team, then when you are setting up those users, allow accounting to see the send to Vista button or the push to Vista button. And then by assigning default groups, we can assign accounting when it's ready to be pushed over. Accounting jumps into ProjectSight, does their review, and then accounting's one who actually pushes that into Vista, giving them an opportunity to validate the change order before it's actually interfaced in Vista. So lots of different ways that we can utilize ProjectSight in order to get these change orders into our system and reviewed by the correct people.
All right. As I'm going through these, and Stephanie and Leah, I know you are as well, if you see one that jumps out to you that we need to answer right away, feel free to share those with the group. Here's one that was asked early on, and this was kind of when we were going through the breadcrumb trail. Is a PM able to create the change order from the RFI and then have it sync into Vista? So, yes, when I was walking through that breadcrumb trail, the idea there, or the representation I wanted you to see, was the ability to create records from other records. So specifically in your scenario, absolutely. If we were on an RFI, I can, and maybe I'm more of a visual person. So our moderators on, or our, those that brought you this webinar may shoot me for this, but I like jumping in and seeing different opportunity, or visually how that looks. So I'm going to jump over to the one that we were covering in our example in that particular project. And here I'll jump straight to the RFI and give you an example there of really what I did. And so we come in here to that RFI, and this is any record within ProjectSight. The link option in the upper right-hand corner where I'm viewing the records that have been linked is also going to be where I can add links to that. So specifically for your scenario, that your question, as I'm on an RFI and identify, okay, we need to start that potential change order right now, I can click on record. I can come down to potential change order. If I click on it properly, and create. What that's going to do, once I give it a description, it's essentially taking us into the screen that we've already seen, which is that PCO screen. So yes, and that could be done from the RFI. It could be done from the issue. If we don't need an RFI, it's up to you. I can create that potential change order from there. Of course, that then follows all the steps that we covered in the demonstration of, once we gathered all the information, at whichever time you deem to click that button in the top, that information then flows back over into the destination ERP, whether it's Spectrum or Vista. All right, Leah and Stephanie, any others? Or I'll go back to the list if you have some to answer. Here's one that someone who was paying very close attention, and in my example, right, I think we were on a particular PCO, and I talked about how on a line item I could send this externally to gather pricing, and I use the example of Teresa. And yes, Teresa is internal, as the person asking the question noticed. She is internal to Trimble, but it absolutely could be an external person where they are invited to the project. There is not a license cost for that external collaborator. They're able to then interact with the records that you share with them. They can provide the pricing there. And I went through a couple of different ways in which they can do that. You can also, through configuration within ProjectSight, have a PDF of that PCO attached to the email notification that they would receive. So yes, they can truly be outside users of the platform. It might need a little bit. So are there audit trails in the PM PCO table that shows the records going in and back out? I'm guessing in the PM PCO table. So Leah, question for you here. How is that represented in the audit trail in Vista? I believe there's a link in there, or a field that's provided during implementation of the integration that shows where that came from.
I'm so sorry. I was answering another question when the view very first started. Can you repeat that question?
That's okay. The question was, are there audit trails in the PM PCO table that shows the records going in and it says back out, but essentially, I believe there's a field that's established during implementation of the integration that is going to show where that PCO came from ProjectSight.
Yeah, so deep in Vista, you'll be able to have an audit trail that will show you when it came over and when it was deleted, because remember, when it leaves PM pending change orders, it is in fact actually being deleted. So it'll show that much information, but really we want to shift our thinking to the audit trails that we want to see. Who created this? When was it sent over? How did this come about? All of that auditing trail is now going to be seen in ProjectSight. So to answer this question shortly, yes, you can see when it was entered into Vista, when it was deleted from Vista, deep within Vista itself, but we want to maintain the auditing trail in ProjectSight itself.
Great. And this is kind of it's a similar. It's in the similar realm. This question is: accounting allowed a review time before it actually posts? And Leo, you can back me on this, but it's the same concept, right? So accounting can certainly have access to that within ProjectSight and utilizing the different statuses. And maybe it would be better for me to have a PCO on here, because within ProjectSight, if we look at the statuses on any particular record, in this case, there's only 4 statuses that I could choose from on this record. You could have as many as you want, because all of that is configured within your instance of ProjectSight. So that status may be accounting review, and accounting can come in, review the PCO before it's actually linked over into Vista. Lee, I don't know if you had anything to add to my answer there, but
No, it's also a great suggestion, and a great suggestion. Wes, one of the questions, we've gotten a few of these. So for those who are joining us who don't have any of our ERP solutions, welcome to the Trimble verse. So we're getting this question: what's the difference between Vista and Spectrum? We get this question a lot internally. What we will suggest you guys do is request an account review to discuss this further. Both are very similar in how they operate. Both are GAAP certified. Both are going to provide you accounting, payroll, project management, etc. But we will take the time to really dive into your company to figure out what is a best bet for you. Do you guys have a third-party IT system that you're working with? Do you have an internal IT? What's your use case with SQL? Do you have multi-currency needs? There is a rhetoric that we go through to make sure that we are presenting the best solution for your company. So we would encourage you guys to request an account review so we can discuss your unique needs further.
This was a question about the integration, and it says, can the integration be pushed outside of normal run times if needed? So the normal runtime, or as is typical for our implementation, is every 60 minutes. Obviously, I didn't wait 60 minutes for that integration to run. My timing is not that good. I couldn't time this webinar out to where I would click that button right before that 60-minute mark. It really depends on your license level of the integration. I don't want to get too deep into this, but we do have the ability for our clients to purchase a level of the integration that will allow them to build their own flows of data back and forth. And if you have that ability and you're at that level of integration, then yes, you could go in and do a manual push. It's not something that's typically implemented, and what we have found is that every 60 minutes seems to be a good enough time delay or lapse. Stephanie, Leah, other questions that you're seeing coming in? I want to clarify here. This was a question that says, so the integration is flexible in that we can decide the direction of integration for each record. The integration is flexible. It is not designed to be configured per record. So the integration is flexible in that you can establish which way you want records to flow. So I'll use the example of contracts. You can create contracts in ProjectSight, and then your integration could push those contracts from ProjectSight into your ERP. Or you could configure the integration during implementation for contracts to be created in your ERP system and then pushed into ProjectSight. That is currently our recommended best practice, although it is possible for you to do it the other way. So it is possible for it to go both ways. It just would not be bi-directional, and it would not be down to the record. It would be determined during implementation. We want to build this in ProjectSight, have it flow back to Vista, and from Vista, pull the budget and populate that in ProjectSight. I hope that clarifies that question. Can you fully estimate in ProjectSight? No. ProjectSight is not an estimation platform. Estimates that are then pulled into the ERP system then populate the budget in ProjectSight.
Hey, Wes,
Stephanie and Leah are typing answers to questions as I go through them, so I'm trying to make sure that I'm not answering questions you're already answering.
Yeah, they are jumping around on us, so we're working to address all of them on our side. Before we wrap up and answer any more questions live, I want to take a moment to make sure we mention Dimensions is coming up in November in Las Vegas. I believe on the slide deck it is November 11th through the 13th. If you found this webinar at all a little bit helpful, please consider coming out to Dimensions in Vegas with us. Wes, Stephanie, and myself both are teaching several individual sessions from Vista to Spectrum to ProjectSight, all of our field tools. We'd love to have you guys join, get an opportunity to meet every single one of you in person. So there is a link to www.trimble.com/dimensions. So go out there, get some more information. If you have any specific Dimensions questions, we'll be happy to get you to the right people. But we'd love to see your faces in Vegas in a few months.
Great reminder, Leah, and thanks for pointing that out. And I think that I have successfully switched back to the slide presentation so you can see some of the information that Leah was talking about there for Dimensions, as she mentioned, November 11th through the 13th. And we'll all be there. Would love to see you there as well. Let's see if I can find a question here that's not currently being answered. And I'm fairly confident that all of these questions are going to be available to us after the webinar presentation. So if we didn't get to your question, then I think we can reach out and answer those. Don't hold me to that. I can't promise that, but we'll do our best.
Oh, confirmation. Yes, Wes, we will get access to all of these questions. We will. Yep.
Wonderful.
Our lovely producers behind the scenes just let us know that we will get access to all these questions, so we'll make sure we go through this early. And if your question hasn't been answered yet, stay tuned for a question from us, an answer from us later.
And Stephanie and Leah, as you're typing answers to questions, I'll throw this one in there and answer that as we start to wrap up. Are the AP vendors companies synced automatically from Vista into ProjectSight? Yes. So companies are part of that linked information. So when that link is established, not only does the budget come over and the subcontracts come over, but the companies come over as well. Now, I will say the contacts within those companies do not come over because you may not want all of those people in that company added as a contact within ProjectSight. So you can then select, or then you can go add what contacts within that company you want to add to that project in ProjectSight. But yes, the companies and all that information does flow over. Do you have any visuals showing the integration with Vista and a map of what is integrated currently? Yes, we do have those, and we can provide some of that information. Dimensions would also be a great place. Hope you're going to be there. Be a great place to learn more about that. Reach out if you know your rep, your account executive. Reach out to them, and they can go over that with you too.
All right, looks like we're right at time. Again, we'll get all these questions answered if we didn't answer them live or in the chat. But thank you all so much for taking your time out of your busy schedules to spend an hour with us, and we look forward to hoping to see everyone in Vegas shortly.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.